We are now officially less than a month away from election night, and things couldn't be more unpredictable. The race is still up in the air with the odds teetering on a razor's edge. If you take a look at prediction markets like Polymarket, they're giving Trump a 52 chance of winning. Essentially, if the election were to be held 100 times, Trump would come out on top 52 of those times, while Kamala Harris would win 47 times, leaving about a 1 chance for something completely unexpected or wild to happen. These odds reflect just how close and uncertain this election really is. What's crucial to understand is that these overall odds are closely tied to each candidate's chances in the battleground states, which will ultimately decide the outcome of the election. Polymarket also runs individual markets for each of these battleground states, and understanding what's happening at the state level is key to grasping the bigger picture. In this video, I'll take you through the odds in each of these critical states, and I'll also give you some of my own analysis on why the numbers are shaking out the way they are. I want to emphasize that while polls give us a snapshot of public opinion at any given moment, prediction markets often offer a more accurate view because they reflect what people who are literally betting on the outcome think will happen. These folks are putting their money where their mouth is, which can lead to a more grounded and realistic prediction of how things will play out. So let's dive in by looking at the so-called safe states where either Trump or Harris have more than a 95% chance of winning. For Vice President Kamala Harris, the so-called Pacific Blue Wall is almost certainly going to stay intact for the 9th consecutive election cycle. States like Washington, Oregon, California, and Hawaii are all solidly in the Democratic column. These are states that have been reliably blue for years, and nothing about the current political landscape suggests that's going to change anytime soon. But before we get into the details, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. On top of those states, we can also include Colorado in the list of safe Democratic states. Colorado has been shifting left faster than almost any other state in the country, and Harris has a very strong hold there. Illinois, another Democratic stronghold in the Midwest, is also a safe bet for Harris. Moving up to the Northeast, Harris has a lock on states like New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, and Maryland. All of these states were carried by Joe Biden by at least 15 percentage points in the 2020 election, and there's no indication that they'll be competitive this time around. In addition to these states, Harris is also very likely to win Maine's 1st congressional district in the District of Columbia, which is so reliably Democratic that there isn't even a market for it. Democrats have never lost D.C. by fewer than 50 points, so that one is a no-brainer. On the other side of the aisle, Trump has his own set of safe states. He's almost guaranteed to win in North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, and Utah, all of which are deep red states that consistently vote Republican. Trump also has Nebraska's statewide election, as well as its 1st and 3rd congressional districts locked down. Other safe Republican states include Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and South Carolina. Finally, we have Kentucky, Indiana, and West Virginia, all of which are firmly in Trump's column. These states are part of Trump's solid base, and in 2020, he carried all of them by at least 15 points. Now, if we fill in the electoral map with these safe states, Kamala Harris jumps out to an early lead in the race to 270 electoral votes. She starts with 191 electoral votes to Trump's 122. This means that 225 electoral votes are still up for grabs in 17 competitive states, which remain shaded in gray. These are the states that will determine who wins the election, and they're where the campaigns will focus their attention in the final weeks leading up to Election Day. Next, let's look at the likely states where each candidate has an 80 up to 95 chance of winning. These states strongly favor one candidate, but there's still a small chance for an upset. For Harris, one of the key states in this category is Minnesota, the home state of her running mate, Tim Walz. Minnesota has gone blue in every election since 1976, which would make this the 13th consecutive cycle if Harris can hold it. In 2020, Biden carried Minnesota by 7 points, and right now, the markets are giving Harris a 92 chance of winning there. However, I'd say that might be a bit too optimistic based on the current polling. The average of the last few polls shows Harris leading by less than 5 points, with some polls putting her lead as low as 3 points. Given that, I'd personally rate her chances closer to 80, moving this closer to the lean category rather than likely. Another state that's likely to go blue is New Mexico. Biden won New Mexico by 11 points in 2020, and Harris is currently seen as the heavy favorite with a 92 chance of carrying the state. This seems more realistic as Harris is leading by more than 8 points in the polling average, with 2 double-digit leads in the last 4 polls. Harris is also favored to hold Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, where Democrats have a 9 chance of winning the single electoral vote from the Omaha-based district. Despite Nebraska as a whole being a deep red state, Biden flipped this district by 6.5 points in 2020, and it's been trending left thanks to growing population of college-educated voters. Virginia is another state where Harris is likely to win. Virginia went for Biden by double digits in 2020, and although this cycle has been more competitive than expected, Harris still holds a lead of about 4.8 based on the last 6 polls. Betting markets give her an 80 chance of winning Virginia, which feels about right given the polling data. Rounding out the list of likely Democratic states are New Hampshire and Maine. These 2 states are traditionally more competitive than their deep blue neighbors in New England. But Biden still won New Hampshire by 7 points and Maine by 9 in 2020. The polling suggests Harris will hold both states by similar margins, and the markets are giving her a solid chance in both. Now that we've covered Harris's likely states, let's turn to Trump's. First up is Alaska, where Trump is almost certain to win. His odds in Alaska are currently sitting at 91. And while his margin of victory in 2020 was the narrowest for a Republican in over 50 years, Alaska hasn't voted blue in 6 decades. So this one is pretty much a done deal. In the Midwest, we have Iowa and Ohio, 2 states that were once key bulbers but have since swung hard to the right. Trump won both states by at least 8 points in both 2016 and 2020. And right now, his odds of winning are 93 in Iowa, 92 in Ohio. Maine's 2nd congressional district is another likely Trump win with an 82 chance, according to Polymarket. This district is one of the most rural and whitest in the country, 2 factors that tend to favor Republicans, and Trump carried it by 7 points in 2020. Further south, we have Florida, one of the biggest prizes on the electoral map with 30 votes. Florida has long been a quintessential swing state, but in recent years, it's been leaning more Republican. Trump won Florida by 3.4 points in 2020, and Polymarket currently gives him an 86 chance of winning the state again in 2024. Finally, there's Texas, the 2nd largest prize on the map with 40 electoral votes. Texas has been trending leftward in urban areas like Dallas and San Antonio, but it's still a reliably red state overall. Trump has an 89 chance of winning Texas, and while his lead in the polls is slightly narrower than in Florida, the state's rural and suburban areas make it tough for Democrats to compete statewide. With these likely states in hand, Trump's electoral vote count jumps to 229, just 7 votes shy of Harris's 226. That leaves 93 electoral votes up for grabs in the remaining battleground states, which are where the real fight will be over the next few weeks. Now let's move on to the most competitive states, starting with Arizona. Arizona is currently classified as a lean Trump state. With the former president holding a 67 chance of winning, Arizona was one of the closest states in 2020, flipping blue for only the 2nd time in 70 years. Biden won it by just 0.3, thanks in large part to the rapid growth and diversification of Maricopa County, which includes the Phoenix metro area. However, Arizona remains a fundamentally Republican state, and Trump is currently leading in the polling average by 1.4.